Hi, I'm Thomas Hunt.
And I'm out of gas.
And this is the Bad News Network! This week, the U.S. Navy seized a legitimate boatload of weapons this week, after intercepting a ship they believe was bringing weapons from Iran to support the war in Yemen. The weapons ranged from Chinese-type 56 assault rifles and Russian-made anti-tank guided missiles to a pile of rocks and some slingshots. The USS Monterey discovered the weapons hidden aboard a Daho, which is some sort of Mideast sailing ship. The weapons were bundled in giant green trash bags below deck, so if they wanted to look suspicious, they were absolutely nailing it. The ship itself had no flags or markings to show where it came from, and it was considered stateless, but officials are saying it most likely originated in Iran with the intent of getting the weapons to Yemen's Houthi rebels. Resolution 2551 was adopted in November 12th of 2020, and it says that weapons and military equipment can be supplied to the Somali National Security Forces but cannot be resold or made available to entities outside the country. The UN passed this resolution with 13 votes in favor and 2 abstentions. Quick bets on who the abstentions were. Anyone? Anyone? Surprise! It was China and Russia. Crazy guys. Crazy how they found Chinese assault rifles and Russian missiles on the boat. After the Navy confiscated the weapons from the boat, they supplied the crew with food and water and let them sail on their way. Seems like they got off pretty easy. I thought maritime law says you have to make them walk the plank or leave them on a deserted island or something like that.
On Sunday, the Colonial Pipeline that carries about 45% of the East Coast supply of diesel, gas, and jet fuel was shut down after being hit with a ransomware attack. Naturally, the finger was quickly pointed at Russia and China. Why?
Why? Because f*** them, that's why.
The group of hackers known as DarkSide, which is a badass name, has been confirmed by the FBI as being responsible for the attack. But it's okay because it didn't matter because they said they didn't mean to do it, only that their goal was to make money and not create problems for society. Well, you guys really f***ed up on that one. My car has been on E for the past 3 days and the gas station I drive by looks like a scene from Mad Max. The pipeline, which stretches from New Jersey all the way to Texas, ships more than 2.5 million barrels a day. With the fuel lines being halted, citizens were told not to panic, which prompted people to panic buy all the gas they could. People were filling up grocery bags full of gas and throwing them in their trunks, while rednecks with trailers pulled up and filled an entire kiddie pool full of gas. On Wednesday, President Biden signed an executive order to strengthen the United States cybersecurity defenses against cyber attacks, which have been on the rise over the past year, with many private companies and federal government networks being attacked. If there's one thing the government doesn't want, it's anyone to know their secrets. The executive order includes things like improving software that is sold to the government, creating a standardized playbook on how to deal with cyber attacks, and upgrading their Google Cloud storage so Biden can save more pictures of ice cream. I'm surprised a lot of these things aren't already in place. I have to sign in with 3 different passwords, click pictures of crosswalks or street lamps just so I can get into Facebook. You can tell the government is full of a bunch of old people when their collective response was to head over to Google and type, "What is cybersecurity?" The executive order also establishes a cybersecurity safety review board, which will be composed of regular nerds and private sector nerds that would review cyber attacks to help analyze the situation and make recommendations on how to combat the attack. They also threw a nice little piece about improving info sharing with the federal government by enacting a government-wide endpoint detection and response system, or EDR. An EDR monitors and collects data in real time from things it indicates as a threat, analyzes the data, and responds to the identified threat and removes or contains it. So we're about 5 years away from Minority Report. Luckily for us, the Colonial Pipeline went back to pumping fuel on Wednesday. But don't put down your swords and tridents just yet. A representative for the pipeline says it's still going to take a couple days until things are running back at full capacity. DarkSide said this was supposed to be a Robin Hood-like act. You know, take from the rich, give to the poor. But I am the poor, and I didn't get shit from this, besides the chance to double-leg some old lady at the gas station. Hey Karen! Maybe you should have tried to fill up 8 pickle buckets full of gas.
A 19-year-old gunman opened fire at a school in the city of Gaza in Russia on Tuesday. The gunman took the lives of at least 7 students and 2 school officials while injuring 20 other people. The shooter, who was labeled as a terrorist by Russian news media groups, posted a picture online before shooting occurred saying, "I will kill a huge number of biological garbage," and always referred to himself as God. The Sova Center in Russia monitors radical youth groups, including a group called the Columbiners, who are obsessed with the Columbine school shooting that happened in the US. Investigators don't currently know if this shooter had a connection with any of these groups, but he had similar dialogue as people involved with these groups. School shootings or mass shootings are rare in Russia, but have been on the rise in the past couple of years, which is a similar trend in the United States. In 2018, an 18-year-old college student opened fire at a school in Crimea, killing 22 people and injuring 61. The Kremlin said it would move to introduce further restrictions on gun ownership in a country where the rules are already much tighter than the US. Russians own more than 20 million guns, under permits for hunting and sport. Weapons with magazines that have more than 10 cartridges or fire bursts of bullets are already outlawed. In order to be granted a permit for the weapons that are legal, citizens must obtain a mental health certificate from a mental professional. So wait, you're telling me all of these laws and measures have already been introduced to this country, and there are still mass shootings? Well, color me amazed. These regulations seem awfully familiar to the Biden administration's considered measures for gun control here. Here's to hoping it all pans out for us. In all fairness, the Russian parliament has already considered a law designed to punish doctors for misdiagnosing patients for giving firearm permits to people with mental health issues. The trouble is, you can also buy a psychologist's medical certificate in Russia for less than $20 online. That definitely should not lead to any other problems. Maybe make it harder or more expensive to become a medical professional, at least a community college degree or a couple $100. At this rate, the dude standing on the corner asking for money could become a shrink. Hard pass.
There have been reports of a missing cat in the suburbs of Houston. And when I say missing cat, I mean a 200-pound, 9-month-old tiger. India, the Bengal tiger, was last spotted on Sunday by Jose Ramos, who recorded the tiger walking through his front lawn. After recording the video, Ramos called the police because, there was a tiger on his lawn. This is where the story gets even weirder. Before police arrived, a man walked out of a nearby house, straddled the tiger, and put him into a white SUV and drove off. Was this Mike Tyson? Or maybe even Joe Exotic from the Tiger King? Nope, it was 26-year-old Victor Hugo Chavez, who is currently on bond for murder. I'm not sure if this was his tiger or if he just said, "F it, mine now." If you're headed to jail, you might as well make it a good story. The only thing that would have made this better is if Victor rode off on the tiger instead of in the SUV. Victor was free on bond for a murder charge dating back to 2017 and was arrested on his home on Monday and charged with evading arrest. His lawyer was upset that he was arrested because he thought it was a little premature on the action of the police department. But when you're caught on tape with a tiger and then arrested without that tiger, the evidence is kind of stacked against you. The tiger is still on the loose, so if anything happens to it or it attacks anybody, that will go on Victor. Since the story is so complicated, we really needed an expert to help us navigate the ins and outs of the story. Thankfully, our needs were heard by none other than that bitch Carole Baskin. You know, the lady from the Tiger King who definitely killed her husband? That bitch Carole Baskin warned the public to be careful if they see the tiger. Well, no shit, it's a tiger. But unfortunately for that bitch Carole Baskin, I'm headed to Texas to catch me a kitty. I'm gonna crack open a can of tuna and go pss, until the tiger comes close enough for me to ride it off into the sunset.
Tensions between Palestine and Israel have always been high, but this week fighting between the two sides escalated, with both sides exchanging missile fire in the Gaza Strip. This has the UN fearing for a full-scale war. Jerusalem has been the center of violent confrontations between Jews and Arabs for over 100 years. On Monday night, militants in Gaza started firing rockets into Israel, which Israel volleyed back with their own rocket. The death toll in Gaza rose to 43 Palestinians killed, 13 of which were children. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken condemned the rockets fired by Hamas, but told Prime Minister Netanyahu that he had an obligation to avoid casualties. That request didn't seem to resonate with Netanyahu, whose military continued to bomb whoever the f*** they wanted. The current fighting is a result of rising tensions in the Holy Hilltop compound in East Jerusalem, with both sides having heavy religious ties to it. Muslims call the sire in Haram al-Sharif, which translates to noble sanctuary home, to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the Old City, which is the third holiest site in Islam. For Jews, it is referred to as the Temple Mount because it was the site of biblical temples that were destroyed by the Romans and is considered to be the holiest site of the Jews. It's your third holiest site. Well, it's our first holiest site. This seems like a pretty petty argument to be having for this many people to be dying over. During the current conflict, Hamas confirmed the killing of their commander in Gaza City, but said thousands of leaders and soldiers will step in to take his place. There are reports of a 6-year-old boy being hit or killed by a rocket fire from Hamas, so both sides are extremely emotional over these killings. The large residential high-rises were destroyed by Israeli fighter jets last week, which Hamas said was home to civilians. President Joe Biden was fairly quiet on the subject until Thursday when he made the call to Israeli Prime Minister, asking him to significantly reduce the amount of rocket attacks. Right now, it doesn't look like the violence isn't going to end anytime soon, and is looking like it's going to get much, much worse. There could be a full-scale war ahead for us.
The COVID vaccine has been readily available to anyone who wants to take it for almost about a month now. The only issue many people would run into would be the lack of appointment availability or how unbelievably poorly the Walgreens website is set up. But that's neither here nor there. All that said to say that Ohio has currently immunized approximately 53.4% of its population. They have begun to incentivize those who are not interested in getting the vaccine with the chance to win $1 million. The state of Ohio will be selecting 5 individuals at random to win the $1 million prize. All of those people have to be over the age of 18 and have to get vaccinated. When asked about how this wouldn't be considered a waste of money, the governor said that the real waste of money is that the vaccine is available to everyone and yet people are still losing their lives to the virus. While this might be the biggest cash prize opportunity for getting vaccinated, it isn't the first case of the incentivized vaccination. The city of Phoenix, Arizona offered each city worker $75 for getting vaccinated. Many other companies have offered similar cash prizes to their employees as well. Krispy Kreme was offering free donuts for people who got vaccinated, so you wouldn't get COVID, but you would get diabetes. As of June 2nd, Ohio will be getting rid of all COVID restrictions in the state, which is kind of like taking the condom right off. Which is kind of like taking the condom off right before you bust a nut. This does explain the COVID vaccine incentivization though, as they hope to prevent a surge in cases for the other 46.6% of Ohio residents who are still unvaccinated when restrictions are lifted. Also, does Ohio even really exist?
In the weekly human piece of news, a former VA nursing assistant has been sentenced to spend the rest of her life in prison after supposedly overdosing 7 people with insulin, causing their deaths. 46-year-old Retta Mays pleaded guilty last year to murdering 7 veterans and assaulting an 8th with the intent to murder that victim as well. The victims ranged in age from 81 to 96 and had served in the Army, Navy, and Air Force during World War II. Mays was slapped with a 7-life sentence for each victim that she killed, plus another 20 for the victim that she tried to kill but wasn't successful at. In other words, that bitch is never going to see freedom again. If anything, she should be shipped to South Carolina to test out the newly rectified execution by firing squad. That's a real thing. Along with never being let out of jail, Mays was also ordered to pay restitution to the victims' families. People are still unsure of why Mays committed these horrific crimes, but she has been cited as having mental health issues, including PTSD from her time serving in the military. Judge Klee quickly called bullshit on that, saying mental health diagnoses and traumatic experiences weren't that severe or uncommon, especially among veterans. None of these other folks are killers, let alone serial killers. You're not special. Also saying that she was a monster of the worst kind, and I couldn't agree more. Whether she is evil or bad at her job, at the end of the day, she's a giant pile of human shit. The hospital where Mays worked is also at fault here. How do you let someone kill 7 people and still let them have a job? Let's pretend that she didn't have any malintent and was just a really shit nurse. Go ahead and fire her ass. A hospital staff trying to save one of her victims was quoted as saying, "Something always happens when I'm in the room and I don't know why." Well, Retta, it's because you're a f***ing psychopath who's killing people. An investigation in 2019 showed a massive string of oversights in the hospital, including insulin not being properly tracked, not having security cameras in the ward she was working at, and staff not reporting any of these incidents. You guys have to do better. These are the men and women who protect our country. They deserve so much more than this. Step the f*** up.
This week, 2 small airplanes were both heading toward the Denver airport to land when they ended up colliding with each other mid-air. The collision caused one of the planes to rip in half and forced the pilot and passengers to parachute out, while the other plane was able to successfully land. Thankfully, no one was injured, and the biggest problem at hand are the damages to each plane. The fact that 2 planes hit each other while in motion in the middle of the sky baffles me. How could you not see each other? Did the pilots miss that day in flight school? Have you ever seen Top Gun? It's the sky! Look how much room you have. According to the AOPA, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, there are roughly 19 mid-air collisions per year. That feels like way too high of a number for something that could be completely avoided. I was so baffled by this, I actually went on Google and searched what the weather was in Denver that day, and there were reports of scattered clouds all day, meaning that there were plenty of blue skies for them to be able to spot each other. I am far more confused and shocked about this than I was when I saw the picture of those two bullets that actually collided during the Civil War. Both pilots have been forced to trade in their pilot's license and their driver's license. The state of Colorado has named them both joint victors of this year's Darwin Award.
And finally, in Florida Man news, Florida man William James Walker stole $12,000 of Lynyrd Skynyrd memorabilia. To make matters worse, the memorabilia in question was said to be auctioned off the next day to help fund cancer benefits. This moron actually stole the entire trailer with all of the items still inside, which I'm sure made transportation easier on his end, but definitely made the cops' job a lot easier since all they had to do was locate a specific trailer. Remember folks, work smarter, not harder. But try to be a bit smarter than that. I guess you could say William was a simple man. For now, William remains free bird, but police have released camera footage of him driving off with the trailer and put out a warrant for his arrest. William, who is homeless, was staying at a Days Inn hotel in Orange Park when he saw a trailer in the parking lot and decided to make it his. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that William probably didn't have that MacGyver skills to hotwire this vehicle, which probably means it was left unlocked and with the keys in it. Joey Nichols, who was the head of the cancer charity doing the event, said the suspect just hooked up the car and left while they were sleeping. Very technical, I know. The trailer included some dope items, including a 1957 Les Paul guitar signed by musicians Greg Allman, Brian Howe, and Butch Trucks. A lot of items that were going to be auctioned were irreplaceable as they belonged to musicians who are now dead. At this point, authorities are not optimistic they will find the trailer, and if they do, doubt the contents of the trailer will still be there. If I had to guess where William was going, it was probably Sweet Home Alabama. Police asked for the public's help to find William, saying that he could be identified by his tattoos. One of praying hands on his arm and the other of a spider web on his neck. Unfortunately, that is like 97% of people in Florida, so they're probably And with that, I'm Thomas Hunt.
And I'm Alex Pokey.
And this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and do yourself a favor. Barbed wires and spider web tattoos, they're just out of style. Get them covered. Pick something else. Otherwise, you might live in Florida. As always, you can get 25% off your order at rangerup.com by using the code BNN. And please check out Nick and Matt at their OnlyFans at Nick and Matt. Have an excellent weekend.